So welcome to our next session. I can tell this looks like it's a wealthy crowd. It looks like everybody bought like 4 or 5 seats. It's good. It's better for a full speaker to address a vacant hall than a vacant speaker to address a full hall. So tweet that. So next we have Jeff Reynolds, who's the president of LRW, Lieberman Research Worldwide. He's spent 20 years of marketing, consulting, and academic experience. He's advised management teams in the U.S., Europe, Latin America, and Asia on strategy, branding, product development, and operations. He's a BA from the University of Kansas and a master's degree in doctoral work at Northwestern University. Please welcome up to the stage, Jeff Reynolds.
Woo! The post-lunch crowd. Has anyone seen the decision fatigue work that shows that if you try to get paroled and you have a morning meeting, you have a chance. If you have an afternoon meeting, like if you have a 4:30 parole appointment, you will never get paroled because people are so exhausted and tired. They're like, yeah, let's do that next year. So the after lunch isn't bad because you've all had a slight bump in glucose. So perhaps I have some chance to hold your attention for, and luckily I only have to do it for 15 minutes. So my goal here today is just to share a little bit about our innovation journey. I'm actually pretty humbled and honored to just be asked by Lenny and the team at IIeX to share a bit about our innovation journey to a crowd of people who are probably the most innovative people in our industry. I don't think we've cracked the code in any unique way, but we have learned a lot over time. And so my hope today is just by sharing a little bit about our experience that you'll take a couple of nuggets about your own innovation journey at your organization. And I'm sure there's a mix here of people in client-side organizations trying to push the peanut up the hill there, as well as people in the industry side like us who are busy trying to offer up innovative solutions and finding that hard, or trying to get your own organizations to change. It has certainly proved daunting, and it has not been a straight path for us. We've learned a lot of lessons along the way. So the title, in part because I need a clever, gripping visual, is Drain Your Shark Tank, and that'll probably end up being a double entendre. We'll have a couple of things to talk about in terms of both draining the innovation talents out of your people and into the organization, as well as sometimes you have to drain a few things along the way that didn't work out as well as you wanted. So let me start. I'm going to stand up here and give a quote. I think this is a profound quote for our company and our branding from one of our major clients who said to us, "You're not innovative." I may be the only speaker at this conference to stand up and give you such a powerful quote from a client that we were not innovative. And that is actually what one of our best clients said back in 2011. It was a summer, it was a vendor day at a Silicon Valley client of ours, one of our best clients, probably top 5 clients for a decade, $1 million, $2 million of work a year. And in the midst of that summer, our business had shrunk to 0. And I knew that the head of research there actually liked us. And I sort of joked with him at the dinner. I said, since you got here, our business has gone from really good. He joined the company about 3 years earlier. It's gone from really good to we're at 0. And he's like, "Are you guys really at 0? And he was sort of mystified by it because he thought we had a pretty good reputation. And by the end of the dinner, he circled back to me for one of those profound insights that drove our business. He said, I think I didn't understand it, but I told my team when I arrived here we were going to be more innovative, and I think that was a call for difference and new and innovation, and actually they don't think of you that way. And so even though I didn't say don't stop working with these guys, they didn't see as innovative. And I'll be honest, from a great client and somebody we were close to, that it kind of hurt. And I looked at us and I thought about us and I said, gosh, I think of us as being pretty innovative, and yet the more I looked at it, the more I realized, we were probably innovative maybe in pockets, but we maybe weren't doing much with it, and there were a couple innovative people, and so we took it to heart. So the first thing I did was throw one of our young, talented innovators at the account. So that's what anyone in my job should do. And some of you may have heard, he's sitting here, Jeremy Sack, this was really the beginning of one of our big innovations. That's this pragmatic brain science, LRW's practical application of neuroscience. That came out of this because Jeremy was one of the guys in our organization who was an innovator, who was experimenting with stuff, and we put him on, started testing some things, and that was our big idea. Let's get out there. We weren't. If you even look at the absolute data that was out there, the Grit survey of most innovative, we were down way on the list, just ahead of the wheel. We weren't doing real well on that list. So I think the client was right. So our big idea was to throw a little bit more innovation at them, started testing some stuff, and got a lot of traction quick. And I think when we saw that, it changed our view on how we ought to view innovation in our business, and that led to ultimately all of what's happened in the last 4 years. So my first insight for everyone would be, in the end, innovation comes when you're solving a problem. You got to be close to problems. You got to understand what's happening at the ground level, and that necessity, of course, is always the mother of invention. So what we actually ended up doing were what I'll kind of talk about today. We did 3 things. The first thing, and it's, I'm not going to call this rocket science, but we asked for innovation. Loudly, clearly, directly, importantly, we asked for it. The second thing is we invited everyone to participate in innovation. We didn't have it be kind of a small thing in the corner. We actually made it a big public thing and tried to summon the innovation talents of our entire organization, and I'll tell you a little more about that. And then lastly, we absolutely were willing to take some risks. Risks include failure. We got some of those. I'll tell you about one of my favorites today. And so that, if somebody says, how did LRW go from being an also ran on the innovation list, and it's, the most recent one had us at 12th. I don't know if we're 12th or 20th, but we've definitely improved. How did you do it? And these would be at the core the 3 things that drove us. So let me tell you a little bit more about those. So the first thing is we asked for it. I think we had our issue with our client. We saw what innovation could do. We got excited about some ideas, and we decided to bet big in that way. And literally and I'm very proud of us as an organization for this, within 3 months of that kind of quote from that client, we actually launched a brand new 5-year strategy for the business. And that had 5 particular planks, but the third plank, the middle plank, was innovation. And we stood up. We literally, we kind of bet the farm on it. We had an off-site hotel, all 325 employees there. Started off with videos. I had everything going but my Steve Jobs black turtleneck. And we said, we're going to do these 5 things to drive the growth of our business. And number 3 was innovation. And we highlighted a recent innovation success story up there. It was a pretty small one. But we really stood up and said, this is super important to us. And what I didn't understand, there was an underbelly of innovation there that I didn't get, which is a lot of, we have a lot of young people that work at our organization. A lot of folks thought that management thought everything was great, was perfect. And that a call for innovation is by definition a call for change, and by definition a call that says, actually, it's not all right now. We need to be better, do more, do differently. And so that actually, I think, connected deep in the hearts of our employees who are so talented and striving for better by their nature. I think this ask for innovation caught people at a pretty deep level. And so that was while of course the business need was innovation, I think we asked for a more profound cultural shift that says we must get better, must improve. So I think it really connected with people. And although it seems simple, we asked for it. We then in all of our core meetings started talking about these strategies. We kept it present, and that was a super important part of our success. So 1, we asked for it. The second thing is we asked everyone for it. You could imagine, I guess, doing an innovation strategy and then saying, so we're launching this R&D group. They're going to be the ones that are going to build us this newest, latest, greatest thing or do something, and they'll tell us when we're doing well. And that is absolutely an alternative, and maybe one that super big companies have to do, but at 325 people, we didn't need to do that, and we just flat out asked everybody. And I don't think we actually knew exactly what would come as a result of that, but we got a super powerful insight 5 months later when a young person in our organization who'd been there 7 months, I literally didn't even know who he was, participated in bringing forward one of our innovative ideas. And we gave him some latitude. He tried some stuff. It didn't work out. But what we did find was that person We saw the talents, we saw the passion, we saw the energy. It was a young guy who had actually been an entrepreneur early when he was in college. He'd started a moving business, and yet he'd gone on to get his master's degree at Yale in emotional intelligence and studied with Goldman, and he had a whole bunch of smart things, and I saw how he could handle data sets. So when we decided to launch 6 months after that a Skunkworks social media analytics business to start figuring out what our innovation was going to be in that thing, we said, you impress us. You're in charge of that. And we carved out half his time in 2012, gave him a full-time job doing that in 2013, and then 2 months ago, we actually launched a social media business. And so this notion of by asking everybody, I don't think we believe everybody can do innovation, but the answer is you don't know who can do the innovation. And so that, when certain people surfaced there, that told us who some of our innovation leaders could be. So that was like a super interesting lesson learned by asking for it widely. So the third thing was this idea of taking risks. So how many of you have actually seen the show Shark Tank? So pretty good amount of you. I had seen the show, and we were trying to figure out, as I'm sure many of your companies do too, how do you take innovations, nurture them for some period, first of all, identify where you might even want to innovate, nurture them, bring them forward, test them, launch them, right? You got to run some sort of innovation process. And so we thought we'd start that off with something akin to the Shark Tank. And so shortly after the strategic plan announcement, we announced the new LRW Shark Tank. And the four people up there turned out to be myself. I don't know if any of you saw the talk on virtual reality earlier. Dave Sackman, our CEO, our CTO, our head of research. We were the curmudgeon sitting up front. We brought the big leather chairs from the conference area into the front of the room and made a pretty good show of it. And boy, we beamed it out to all of our remote offices and had everybody watch. We had 110 people jam in our main conference room. And it was a good show. And people had to submit their ideas. They had 5 minutes to bring them, and they could get them sort of funded with energy or time or a little money from the company to take them forward. And I think we took maybe 2 ideas forward out of that first one. So that was cool. We were feeling good. Everybody had a really good time with it. Then the next month, we only had 2 submissions. So we had the meeting. It wasn't quite as energizing. And then the next month, kind of nobody really had any more ideas. We were hearing feedback that, the young staff found the Shark Tank a little intimidating. Too much shark. Too much Simon Cowell, not enough Paula Abdul in that room. And we could see with no submissions, it's like, I think we had tried to push an innovation process a little more than it actually plays out. And so in an email that I entitled, "We are draining the Shark Tank," I basically canceled the thing. And I said, guys, I think this was a decent idea. We appreciate everybody's participated. I think we're trying to force it too much. We'll call another Shark Tank if we need it. But the interesting thing was, I think it was a super important symbol of a couple things. First, it was obviously a nice big sign that we were trying to do more in terms of innovation. So that was a strong communication mechanism. But I think the fact that we did it, we failed, didn't work, and that we shut it down, moved on, was a signal that that was going to be how we were going to innovate. If I was bold enough to call for this, do my best Shark Tank, and then realize it wasn't going to work and make a, kind of a public, whatever you call it. I mean, it wasn't that big of a failure, but if I'm willing to have a little egg on my face, I think it was an entrance to everybody that that's how innovation works. You try stuff, what works, you move forward. What doesn't, if it doesn't work, you try to improve it. If you can't figure out how to do that, you shut it down and you move on. So I think we got some mojo going that way. And the Shark Tank still symbolizes this. There's anyone who actually got an idea approved got a little stuffed shark. So we got a few stuffed sharks sitting around the office. And it sits out there as a bit of a symbol of our innovation journey. But the key thing was notion of taking risks and failing forward, because that's simply what you have to do. And so the bottom line is we land at this spot now 3.5 years later, and we really have been able to innovate. And these are the product innovations that we've been able to accomplish. We're a 40-year-old firm, so it's not like we're some sort of group that didn't have to think about changing in some capacity. And so the fact we've been able to produce 4 kind of major offering differences is pretty exciting. But we've actually also done process improvement. There have been a host of smaller innovations that have got spurred in the business. And again, that major cultural shift around the idea that says we got to make this place better. It isn't right. We got to fix it and drive this thing forward, I think has been a major cultural shift. But again, maybe some of you have seen our talks on pragmatic brain science, where we're bringing neuroscience methods to survey-based market research in a really practical way. Our virtual reality business, which Dave spoke on earlier. I told you earlier about the story of the young guy who, in 18 months, we've actually been able to offer a consumer insights analytics business where we actually analyze social media data for insights, not just about social media, for the business. And we've done now maybe 250 different projects to try to help kind of take that, because I think that's been a real gap in our industry. There's sort of data everywhere, but nobody quite knows, buy some software, look at net-based trend line, now what do we do? We've been really working on how do we drive that into the so what positioning that is our company. And then an innovation that we really haven't even launched yet, but we've now, we're going to have a new tracking offering that's going to use technology to, frankly, I think probably drop the cost of base tracking by 40% and create real-time data for tracking. And so that's a super exciting thing that we're not really even ready to present it yet, but I'm really proud of what we've been able to do in 4 years on just the product side of innovation, let alone on the process side. And if perceptions mean anything, when Grit goes out and does this survey and gets feedback from the marketplace, we're now much higher on the list. Call it 12th. I don't want to get over focused on that. So I'm really proud. Think we've learned a few things. Think we got a lot to learn to keep it going forward, and just wanted, Lenny thought it was a good idea if we could just tell that story a little bit. Maybe you all have some questions. We've got maybe 3 or 4 minutes left that we can try to answer a couple of questions and call it a wrap. Yeah. I'll repeat the questions too if you just want to bark them. I don't know. Last time I had a lunch separation, it was 8th grade history, so I don't know how to play that. Yeah. So to summarize, the question was, what was the magnitude of the threat that drove this, or our perception of it? And secondly, can you tell us more about the bottom line or top line real results out of this? Because obviously it requires investment. So the first piece is, I don't know if we were smart enough to know whether it was an existential threat. If you think back to my story, the first thing was we had a really big client that wasn't very happy with us. So I didn't have to solve... Yeah, I didn't have to boil the ocean to solve that a $1 million to $2 million client had shrunk to 0. And $1 million to $2 million for a company our size is super meaningful. It also, so that was sort of part of the proof point. And then I think we probably applied some instincts that said, wow, this is exciting. We think we've maybe got a different track, because we haven't really maybe gone that product leadership or product innovation strategy. I think we thought it would be good for the business. I don't think we thought we were under an existential threat, but we were having kind of a tough year in 11 as it was, and I think we were looking for something incremental. So I'd say maybe somewhere in the middle of it was a nice to have versus believing it was an existential threat. We thought it would be a growth engine. The second thing is, can we determine the actual results from a top line standpoint? We know that this year almost 20% of our revenues will have pragmatic brain science attached to them. Now, pragmatic brain science is something you can attach to a study, so it's not like you have to dump the old version and do that, but it's a tool that gets applied. But we track that So that's a pretty darn meaningful number in 2 years for it to become part of the fabric of what we do at a 1 in 5 studies sort of level. So I think that's a sign of its impact on the top line. These other things, I'd say they're still in early development mode. At this point, virtual reality, that we're losing more money than we're making. That I hope to turn that around by the end of the year. In terms of the social media, we've probably done it in baby steps, so it's been more a couple of people's time and a lot of management attention, but not necessarily a huge bottom line drain. And we're starting to see really good traction with that. So net result is, I think we're delivering on both the top and bottom line on this, but it really depends on the stage of those investments. Other questions? Yeah. Yeah, so I think the initial things would have been signals, obviously things like Shark Tank, asking for it, giving young people the opportunity to bring ideas in front, doing some things, highlighting those stories. We created an innovation award that could be product or process, so that got the light of day to exciting innovations. But it has then created I think a second order effect of we are asking questions about what we need to do from a cultural standpoint. So we launched in 2012, sort of a cultural vision for our employees, or an employee vision we call the opportunity culture. So that was probably a little bit related to kind of how we wanted them to think about their opportunity in our company and as it relates to innovation. And we're now actually doing a broader cultural review of the organization. So our management training has probably been impacted. I think we realized we had some managers that didn't quite know how to support that innovation because it's an outside the box. You got to give people lateral space to move, so that had some impact. Things like that.
Jeff, if folks have more questions, are you here for?
Yeah, no, I'm here for the rest of the day. Thank you all for time and for the meeting.
Thank you.